Guys, it's Alina. So I have another video for you today that's going to get a little more personal than I normally get on here. My one video was pretty personal about me and my ex, but this is super personal. So, it's halfway through getting ready, and I actually just decided to only do my hair and makeup. I didn't want to get dressed, I guess you could say. I didn't want to put on an outfit and set up my camera and all that because this is really real. It gets emotional and it's personal, so what better way to get emotional and personal than in my boyfriend's shirt and shorts and in my bed? um, so if I'm laughing through this, I laugh when I get nervous, and surprisingly, I am really nervous to tell this story. I didn't think I was going to be, but hey, cool. The more you know. There should be a rainbow. So anyway, if you clicked on this, then you obviously know trigger warning and everything. We are going to get pretty into it. I'm not going to be sugarcoating things. And yeah, so it could be a lot for you. You know you better than I know you. You're a stranger on the internet. But this is something that you can't handle, then just go and click out and watch one of my other videos. I think I'm funny. Who knows if I am? My views kind of say I'm not. But yeah, let's get into it. Also, sorry if the camera's shaky. I'm literally holding it. So anyway, I was 13 when the first sexual assault of my life happened. And I'm also not going to be changing names because I don't want to give them that power. If I sugarcoat it, change names, don't talk about this, then they still have the power. And they don't. It's took me a lot of years to get to where I am with this and able to actually come on the internet and tell this story. And I'm very proud of myself and how far I've came. And it's my story to tell, not theirs. So anyway, I was 13 years old, and my best friend was a guy named Christian. Won't say last names just because, hey, let's not get sued today. So anyway, his name was Christian, and him and I were best friends for a really long time. And obviously I spent tons of time alone with him, and we would do stuff together all the time because he was my friend, and that's what you do with friends, you know? So anyway, I would say that we were friends for about 2 years when this happened. And I had to stay after school for, I think it was called E2020 or something like that. Basically, it was schoolwork that you did on the computer, and it was in the computer lab, and you just did your course online, kind of like homeschooling, but you were still at school, if that makes sense. I feel like it doesn't, but hey, Google it. So anyway, I had to stay after school for that, and me being the rebellious little asshole that I was, I decided that I didn't want to go to that. I wanted to go hang out at my friend Christian's house, and his house was right down the street from the school. So I just walked over there, and it was the middle of winter too. But anyway, so I walked there, and his mom wasn't home. It was just him. His brothers and his mom wasn't home. So it was just me and him hanging out. We were chilling in his bedroom, and we were sitting on his bed. Didn't think anything of it. Done it a million times. He was my best friend. So, sitting there, listening to music, talking. I don't obviously remember what we were talking about. This happened when I was 13 and I'm 22. So, nope, no idea what we were talking about. And he kind of leans over into my personal space and is you're really pretty. And I'm like, okay, dude, thanks. You're my best friend. You've never complimented me before, but Right on. Thanks. I know. I was cocky. Still am. But whatever. And, he's like, you're really pretty. And he puts his hand on my thigh. And I'm like, hey, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop playing around. And I didn't think much of it. I just kind of brushed it off as him fucking with me, I guess. And then he and I just kind of like chilled out for a little bit more. and then he put his hand on my thigh again. And this time he put it up a little more towards my vagina. And at that point I was like, okay, this is getting weird. I don't think he is fucking with me. So I tell him that I have to get back to school, and I start to walk out. And, his bedroom was down the hall. So I walked down the hall into his living room, and then there was his couch. And he was behind me, and I just figured he was walking me out or whatever, and he pushed me down onto the couch. So, like, I went over the arm of the couch and it was on my back. And then he came over and moved me to where I would normally be sitting on the couch, but I was still on my back, and he had my legs up, and I was wearing jeans. And then he took my jeans off and started to take my underwear off. And I went into kind of survival mode. And at first I was kind of in shock. So I just laid there. And then my body went into that fight or flight. I got fight. Thank God. Not that it helped me, but I went into fight. And I put my legs kind of on his hip bones, and I started to try and push him off me. And back then I was 5 foot and 108 pounds, and he was 6 foot and 200 pounds. So there was no way that this person that's 5 foot and skinny little is gonna push this dude off her, especially not with any training techniques or knowledge of how to fight off a assailant, I'm sure. So anyway, I try to push him off me. I'm pushing and with my legs, and I start pushing with my arms, telling him to get off me. It's no, get off me, no, no, no. I tried to hit him, and that's when he pinned my arms down, and obviously very easily moved my legs, and held my arms above my head with one hand, and then with the other hand he unbuttoned his pants and took out his penis and inserted it into me. And at that point, it was kind of an out-of-body experience, which, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. It's the best way I can explain it, is it was an out-of-body experience. I just laid there, and I stopped fighting, and I just stared at the ceiling and waited for it to be over. Just limp. And now I know that it was shock. My body went into shock. I couldn't believe that this was happening. And, yeah, I laid there and waited for it to be over. And when it finally was over, then I got up and I put on my underwear, I put on my pants, and he looks at me and is like, hey, you can take my bike and ride it back to school if you need to. And at this point, I was bleeding a lot. And, you know, so much pain. Just like the most pain I can possibly think of. And uh, he goes and gets me some paper towel to wipe off the blood and tells me that, you know, I can take his bike and ride it back to school so I don't have to walk. And so I took his bike and I didn't say anything. I just walked out, got his bike, and rode it back to school. And I parked it outside, and I went back into the school and waited for my mom. And then rode back home with my mom. Did not tell her what happened. I was still trying to make sense of it myself. And I got home and I just lost it. I cried my eyes out for hours. And, you know, I felt dirty. And I felt like it was my fault that this happened to me. And, because at the time, I mean, it was 2009. And no one was really talking about this stuff, you know? We knew it happened, but no one ever really said, like, it could be your best friend, or how to deal with it afterwards, even. And at the time, there was still a lot of stigma around talking about it, and it was still that, oh, well, what were you wearing? You let him on. Well, what did you think would happen if you were alone in a room with a guy? And, you know, boys will be boys. God, I fucking hate that. But yeah, so there was still all that around it, and I didn't want to tell anyone because I kind of felt like it was my fault, and I felt dirty, and, you know, like, people were gonna blame me, and for a while there, I actually did think it was my fault that this happened. And so I remember just getting in the shower and washing my body, just washing my body as hard as I possibly could for like 30 minutes straight, and just sitting on the floor of the tub and holding myself and crying. And you know, he had ripped me really bad, and it really hurt. So and I was bleeding a lot still too. So I remember just like trying to get the blood off my legs, and yeah, it was pretty horrible. And I actually told my friend about it because she was friends with him as well, and she had told me that the same thing had happened to her with him. So now there's me and her that I know of that has been raped by him. And, you know, at that point, had there not been so much stigma, like if it was nowadays, then I would definitely come forward. But there was that stigma, and I felt dirty and gross, and I didn't want to, you know, go to the police or anything, because at the time I didn't know the process. I was 13. I was a little kid. And so I never really told anyone about it. I didn't even tell my mom. And a lot happened there with that, but that's a different story. So anyway, fast forward a few years, and I'm 17 years old, and I'm living up in Holland with my aunts and stuff. And I have my group of friends, I think there was 8 of us all together that would hang out every day. And I had my boyfriend, my ex, that I made the video about and everything. And him and I weren't really dating at the time, but we kind of were. Just 17-year-old bullshit. And so, I had some problems with my aunt, living with my aunt, and I was gonna move back in with my grandparents, my mom and papa. And, it's my last night in town and everything, and so my friends threw me a going away party. And it was at my, well, not really friend now, but, friend TJ's house, and, there was a lot of booze, and his mom didn't give a shit what we did. She would party with us. So there was booze and weed, and I don't smoke weed, and I didn't smoke weed that night. It's just kind of like setting the scene here, I guess. But anyway, all of us are just kind of hanging out and everything, and John is his name, was there, and I, in no way, shape, and or form, was into John. I had heard from friends, I don't know if it's necessarily true, because, I obviously never looked into it, but he had molested an infant little girl. And so this person disgusted me. Fucking pedophile, fucking losers, stay the fuck away from me. Do not speak to me. And so I was really, really drunk. Really, really drunk. I think it was on UV Blue. Just, still to this day can't drink UV Blue. So anyway, just white girl wasted. And John's there and my boyfriend isn't. My boyfriend had decided that he wanted to go work in the grow room for marijuana that he did with his friend. Her mom grew marijuana for some medical condition that she had, and the mom would have the kids work in the grow room, which is super fucking illegal, but whatever, not my business. And so he wasn't there, and I was really sad. I remember being really sad, and so I drank a lot more, and I was already really drunk. And at 17, I wasn't really much of a partier, really. I think I'd only been drunk like 1 or 2 times before that. And so I didn't know how to drink, for one. And for 2, it was UV Blue, which I was basically just taking shots of. Like, oh God, no. But anyway, so I get blackout drunk. And TJ, his mom, is not home. And so I go and I lay in her bed. That's really the last thing that I remember, is going and laying in her bed. And I guess my friends just kept partying and everything, blah, blah, blah. They were all pretty drunk too. And then apparently John came into the bedroom and lay down next to me. And my friends saw this happen, and they didn't do anything about it, and they knew how I felt about him. And they just kind of shut the door, I guess. They said that I was awake, so that's how I know that I was blackout wasted. Obviously didn't know at the time, because I thought I went night-night. Bitch didn't. And so, he went and he shut the door. My friend said is the last thing that they saw was him going and shutting the door. And they didn't do anything about it. Great friends, right? So anyway, I have gotten flashbacks, kind of, I guess you could say, of what happened over the years. Like I said, I'm 22 now. This happened when I was 17. And I remember him undoing his pants. And I remember halfway through it, someone opening the door, and it was TJ's brother. And they saw, obviously us having sex. And to them, it looked consensual and everything. So they just shut the door back. And, yeah, so I remember the door opening and him being on top of me and inside of me. And then I out again. Nothing. And I remember his what's that called? Stereo in his car, the time on it, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was in his car, and then next thing you know, I'm waking up in his bed at his house, and I'm naked. And at the time, I didn't know I was at his house when I woke up. All I knew was I woke up in a strange place I didn't know with him next to me. He was asleep and I was naked, and I didn't know how I got there. And so it turns out that, from what my friends told me and kind of what I can remember, is that basically he, had sex with me. Not willing. I'm not willing at all. No, I don't want to have sex with the pedophile. Sure don't. And apparently he was sober. I remember him even admitting that he was sober after the fact. And he took me in front of my friends out of the house, put me in his vehicle, drove me to his house, had sex with me again, and yeah. So I woke up and I started freaking out. I hit him. I was like, dude, wake the fuck up. Like, at the time, I didn't know what had happened, like I said, that memory of the door opening and him being on top of me and everything. That's just what I remembered throughout the years. So I'm like, hey, wake up, like, where the fuck's my boyfriend's name? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I asked again, I was like, where the fuck is he? Where am I? Like, why am I here? Why are you next to me? And I'm freaking the fuck out. And I'm looking around for my cell phone, and I don't have my cell phone. I don't have my purse. I have nothing. And so I get dressed and I tell him, take me home. And he says no, that he wants to make breakfast first and then he'll take me home. And I'm like, no, take me home now. And he says no once more, and he gets up and he starts making him breakfast. And I'm like, okay, come on. Yep, let's go. All right, yep, yeah, oh, eggs. Yep, that's great. And then he, for some fucking reason, has me grate cheese for him. I don't know. I just did it to, like, try and get myself out of there as fast as I could. And he eats, and it's obviously becoming pretty apparent to me at this point what happened. And my vagina hurts really fucking bad again, just like when I was 13. I know the feeling. So he takes me back to my friend's house, and they're all under the assumption that we consensually had sex. They said that I didn't say no, and I looked conscious, so they didn't think anything of it. And so they told my ex about it, my now ex, then boyfriend, and he freaked out. He called me a whore and a slut, every single name you can think about. He almost stabbed me, and everyone just assumed that I was this huge slut that, had sex with this dude who's a fucking pedophile, and that I wanted it to happen. And so I tried explaining to my friends you know, I didn't want it and I don't remember it and all that. And they're just like, well, I mean, you didn't say no, so it's not rape. And I was like, bitch, I was unconscious. How can someone that isn't with it fucking say no? Like, he was sober. I was very intoxicated. That 100% is rape. And I didn't even realize at first that it was rape. I just kind of brushed it off. But once I spoke with my family about it, you know, obviously I realized it was rape. And I would have went to the police. But at that point, I felt like there was just no evidence to show that it was rape or prove that it happened even. So I just kind of let it go. But all this just weighed so heavily on me for so long, and I finally now have the courage to speak about it because of things like the Me Too movement. It is so important. And women empowerment and believing women when they tell you that they did not want it to happen and the circumstances, you know, it might not seem like rape to you for whatever reason, but if the evidence is there, if there was not given consent, if the person is unconscious, to where they can't say no and the other person is sober, and you know that this person does not want to have sex with that other person and it's happening and they're intoxicated, or even if your friend tells you that their best friend fucking raped them, please be there for them. It does happen. And it happened to me. It can happen to anyone. So please, women, just, unfortunately, we have to say, just be careful. It's so fucked up that we live in a society where I have to say that to you. Be careful. And be aware of what's going on. And, you know, safety first, I guess. I hate the fact that we live in a society that's like that, to where I have to say these things to you, but unfortunately it's just how it is. And I'm pretty sure I have a lot of younger viewers that watch these things, and yeah, just, you know, be aware of the situation. If it starts escalating, get help. Carry mace on you. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know how the first situation could have been prevented. He was my friend. But the second, yeah, I could have just not gotten that drunk. So, it sucks that I have to say that I could have just not gotten that drunk. You know, men don't normally have these problems, but it does happen to them too. And unfortunately, that's something that we really don't talk about, is that it happens to men too. So men, you know, be vigilant of that as well. And, yeah, so those are my 2 sexual assault stories. I wanted to come on here and talk about it because they do not need to have that power over me anymore. They just don't. I did not deserve either of those things to happen to me because I was drunk or because I was alone with my best friend in his bedroom. I did not ask for either of those things to happen to me. And if something similar happened to any of you, you didn't ask for it either. And you did not deserve for it to happen. And I'm very, very sorry. It's sad that I honestly do not know a single female in my life that has not been sexually assaulted. That is an issue. That is something we need to talk about. And here's me talking about it. But I do hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story. And just stay safe out there. All right. I still don't have a sign off. So, bye.